I gave Pam Hawkins some names and phone numbers, and she's circulating those names and phone numbers. And for the sake of brevity, I'm not going to go through those names and phone numbers, but they are the names and phone numbers of several people in Congress that if you don't call them, nothing's going to change here. Speaker of the House Newt Gingrich is one I would recommend. These are people you should call about congressional hearings on Waco. Senate Judiciary Chairman Orrin Hatch, both United States senators from Texas, but the really key people are House Judiciary Subcommittee on Crime Chairman Bill McCollum and Congressman Bill Zelliff, who was the chairman of the Oversight Subcommittee of the House Criminal Justice. And one person you really ought to call is the Undersecretary of Treasury for Law Enforcement, Ron Noble, and his phone number is 202-622-0240. I'm going to give you some important information, and I want you to call these people in Congress and raise hell with them. I'm going to tell you today why. I'm going to tell you why Phil Winoski and Chuck Sarabin, the two raid commanders who led this disaster out here that started it, I'm going to tell you why they got their jobs back. We've been puzzled by that mysterious development. And I'm going to promise you something. If you don't call these people in Congress and make your voices heard now, this week, next week, and the week after that, we will never get any answers and there will never be any accountability. There will only be more Wacos. Most of what people remember about Waco when I talk to them and I travel around the country is a lot of people remember the bad jokes, and they tell those over and over. It is no longer an important issue, most people believe, and I appreciate you guys coming out, particularly in this bad weather, to make it an important issue. But people say, people tell me, put it behind you, get over it. We're not joking today because what happened out here was nothing less than evil. The unanswered questions lingering over the ashes behind me here are blacker and uglier than the giant pall of smoke 2 years ago. The 51-day Battle of Mt Carmel began with an ATF publicity stunt as reckless and vainglorious as Custer's charge at the Little Bighorn. It ended with more criminally negligent conduct, a deadly armored poison gas assault approved by Janet Reno and flawlessly executed. Yep, that's what the Justice Department's investigation of itself said. Flawlessly executed by the FBI. I thought about that. Flawless. They made no mistakes. Maybe everything did go just according to plan. Now, there's a concept that begs more answers. We have no answers right now because Congress and the Clinton administration have refused to allow any meaningful forum to independently address facts which suggest the ATF launched a deliberate attack on a home and church it knew was occupied by scores of women and children. That the ATF did so with hell-born gunfire and direct involvement of U.S. Army Special Forces soldiers. That the FBI hostage rescue team launched a second attack that was the proximate cause of a deadly fire. We have no answers, says Henry Ruth, who is ironically one of the authors of the Treasury Department's investigative report, because, and I quote Mr. Ruth here, the FBI has never subjected itself to thorough external investigations in its history since the 1920s. Nor have they been held accountable in the way other agencies have been held accountable. Part of this goes back to the magic of J. Edgar Hoover, to the mystique he created and the fear he created among the political apparatus in Washington. We also have no answers because the Justice Department and the Treasury Department have conspired to aid and abet in the ATF's and the FBI's cover-up of the truth. Independent eyewitnesses, for instance, Mr. Zimmerman, saw physical evidence of indiscriminate gunfire from ATF agents at the front door and from helicopters. Yet not one government investigator has ever questioned Jack Zimmerman. Am I wrong, Jack? Have you? Okay. No, well, right. No federal investigator. Or Dick DeGuerin. And a great body of physical evidence has emerged refuting the government's claim of mass suicide, suggesting that most victims were killed by the chemical Janet Reno said was so safe to use on those children that she was so worried about. There must be some reckoning of the facts, accountability for acts, and meaningful punishment of the guilty, because without it, federal law enforcement is, in the eyes of many frightened citizens, losing the legitimacy necessary in all societies except police states. Law enforcement agents cannot be allowed to be above the law, even acting in their official capacities, especially acting in their official capacities. Facts do not lie, and facts must be acted on. We have many new facts. We have many disturbing questions, and we have no meaningful answers from the government because President Clinton and Congress haven't allowed it. We do know one thing. If the ATF charged in here like Custer, the effect of the FBI's policy on April 19th was no less deadly to the Branch Davidians than the Army's rules of engagement toward the helpless, unarmed Indians at the Battle of Wounded Knee. It's not surprising Clinton and Congress are reluctant to delve into the Waco massacre. The answers promise to be painful for everyone. But it is a healing that needs desperately to occur if the government is going to continue to enjoy the allegiance and confidence and legitimacy in the eyes of its citizenry whose members have so lately and sorely been abused. Such healing is of vital importance to the survival of personal liberty in this country. Time may be the tincture that cures all ills, but 2 years after the Waco massacre, our leaders still turn a blind eye to this festering sore on the national soul. Instead, the United States executive branch, which includes the Federal Bureau of Investigation and the ATF, has made it clear that they will not admit wrongdoing, will not correct wrongs, and will not punish the guilty. To the contrary, the same government persists in tightening its noose around our necks by steadily eroding rights and liberties. Career bureaucrats and the people elected to supposedly protect and preserve our liberties say they do this for our own good, for the sake of public safety. Unable to cope with crime, government wants to take away a citizen's right to protect himself. Then government uses crime as an excuse to take away more liberty. For those who have not read history, public safety can be synonymous with state security. And that fact is as true today in the United States as it was in Hitler's Germany in the 1930s. And in the 1930s in Germany, it was not just politically incorrect, but downright dangerous to question the actions of police agents for any reason. Our federal law enforcement agencies made it crystal clear that on the ground where we stand, that right or wrong, the government is willing to use overwhelming deadly force, even when scores of innocents are endangered, and if you resist, the government will simply kill you, no matter how minor the alleged crime, and they will kill anyone who stands with or even near you. Make no mistake about this. No matter what Janet Reno might say, watch what she does. Pay attention to actions, not to words. And that's what I encourage you to do with Congress in the next few weeks, because I'm still very skeptical that there's going to be a meaningful forum provided in Congress. Republicans have pledged to give a smaller government. That's what they say, but watch what they do. While they've been trying to pass the contract with America, the law enforcement bureaucracy, unleashed by President Clinton in the name of public safety, have taken out a contract on America and on liberty and on anyone or anything that stands in their way. To paraphrase the Bible, what is to be accomplished from all this for our nation and our society if we gain a whole world of public safety or state security and sacrifice our national heart and soul? What is to be gained when crime fighters become baby killers? What kind of upside-down world has evolved when our president, our Congress, and our news media clamor for an investigation into the deaths of 3 citizens by foreign soldiers in Guatemala, yet they are uninterested in the deaths of almost 100 men, women, and children at the hands of U.S. police agents in our own country? What kind of Orwellian doublespeak have we embraced when our government's warriors are called peacekeepers? When those who are to supposedly keep the peace become warriors on inanimate objects? We had a war on alcohol in the 1920s, a war on drugs in the 1980s, and a war on guns in the 1990s. And we still have alcoholism, we still have drug addiction, and if private citizens did not still have guns, no telling how far federal agents might have gone in their assault on liberty. Fear the government that fears your gun, because the government is not engaged in a war on crime, it is engaged in a war on liberty. Government is engaged in massive propaganda campaign aimed at hiding the fact that it is failing. Booze, drugs, and guns are all inanimate objects. They have no conscience. They can take no action in and of themselves. They make no decisions. In the real world, wars are waged not against inanimate objects. Wars are waged against people. And people, many of them innocent people, are the ones who die. Also killed in the process are the essential liberties, the heart and soul of what the founders of this country sought to establish. Many unwitting citizens have been conned by the government's propaganda into yielding their liberties to the government in the name of public safety. And I think Waco played a big part in that. That, my friends, is a one-way street. Ben Franklin said that the man who will trade liberty for security